I'm joined today by David, and I'm going to let you pronounce your surname so I don't mess it up, from Brisbane Makeover Co. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, and it's Manciameli.
Manciameli, sorry about that.
That's all right.
I'll get it wrong a few times.
That's okay.
I'm going to start the same way that I start all these conversations, and that is to go right back before Brisbane Makeover Co. and ask you, what were you doing before you got started?
Look, my family had a pasta business, big Italian. We had a pasta business in Sydney. And so just at Town Hall Station, we had a little pasta shop there, which was awesome when you're 18.
Is it still there?
No, it's changed hands and different shops. So it started in a pasta business. I've done everything from advertising. I was a private investigator at one stage. Yeah, so that was an interesting role.
I think we need to steer this conversation differently. That sounds very interesting.
Yeah, it's different. What else? Yeah, I've worked for big corporate businesses. I've done some sales roles, but my passion was real estate and property, which is
makes sense.
Pretty much how we got to here. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And I mean, advertising and sales very relevant, I guess. It's all gonna from a business. Most business owners have a lot of hats to kind of fill, so a lot of shoes to fill. So all of those sort of experiences, I guess, kind of combine in some way.
Yeah. So earlier on, I was the debt collector, the office bitch. I was the painter. I was everything. Yeah. And I think most people starting out or in business, you have to be. Until you grow to a certain level, then you can kind of delegate different roles to different people.
The stuff you enjoy less or aren't as good at, you start delegating. And I actually think it's really useful, because when you do delegate, if you've already done it, you know what to expect from somebody, or how to, at least bring in somebody who might be better at that thing than you. At least know what a good job looks like. And I think I'm jumping around a bit, but the marketing is one thing in particular that or advertising, Facebook ads and that sort of thing. I don't know enough about it, and I know that if I either need to learn enough to know whether something is good or bad. Before I hire somebody, because then I don't really know how to judge if they're doing a good job or not. And
that's the funny thing, because with Facebook and Instagram, this is all new territory. Like everyone's learning, and I guess some people just specialise in that. But it's just a different world. And we're all learning as we go along. But some people are doing better than others on social. And
that's, like I said, part of being a business owner. You got to dive into it. So what was the moment or series of events, or tell us how Brisbane Makeover Co started?
All right. So I guess I was into property at a very young age. I think I was about 18 when I bought my first house.
Burnt?
Yeah, burnt my first house. And then I was just buying and selling, and I thought, what can I do better? To sell quicker and make more money. Then I kind of learned a bit of a trade and just started getting into, just learning different things. Interior design was one of them. Mm-hmm. Then moved from Sydney to Brisbane. About 27, I think it was, I was kind of semi-retired, because I bought and sold quite a few properties that I was all...
Done quite well.
I was all cashed up, cashed up, which was great. And what else? So I had a few years kind of off, and then I thought, I either got to find a job or I start my own business. Mm-hmm. And I know I make a terrible employee, so I thought I'll start a business. And so that's when Brisbane Makeovers kind of came about.
And you sent me a little bio that I've mentioned a few things, but one comment here caught my eye and I thought was quite interesting. You said, after a couple of years, I ran out of money and had to start my own business. It's funny you say it that way, because I think most people go into business think with a need for cash to inject and invest, and it costs a lot of money. Whereas, like you say, you kind of got to the point where it was one or the other. And
I remember just talking about branding of vehicles. I remember going to the bank at Morningside, putting $50 into my new work account, and that's pretty much started me off. And then I branded my vehicle back then for about $70 or something, and thinking, oh my God, how do I, this is more money than, I thought I can't afford it, but I've got to do it. And sure enough, about 2 days later, somebody saw my car in Morningside, a Murray, and that turned out to be a $16,000 job. And I thought, fantastic. That $70 for branding was the best thing.
Not a bad return on investment.
That was great. That's great.
So the company looks quite different now than it did at the start, I'm sure. And I did in my research Googling, BMC. I still noticed that there were a couple of kind of obscure places that mentioned things like renovation, kitchen makeovers, and that sort of thing. So, for those that don't know, tell us a bit about what BMC looked like in the early days compared to maybe what it is now.
Sure. So the very early days, beginning, I provided a painting service. So I was a painter.
Okay.
Yeah. And which was a lot of fun, and had some guys. We were, just a bunch of blokes just doing a trade and enjoying it. One thing just led to another, and once again I thought, well, how can I offer my customers a better service? So I studied colours, really. And I thought, if I'm going to do a painting quote, at least I can provide them with colour options and what works, what doesn't, which was great because that got me a lot of work. And then from there I got into things like window dressing and floor sanding, just little bits and pieces to, I guess, improve property. So from a painting service, they got into landscaping, all these different things as we were growing.
All the add-ons?
Just all the add-ons, yeah, it was great. One thing led to another, and I had a guy join me, helping me do some painting work. His name's Darren, and he worked with me for about a year. Then we became business partners, and then together, we just grew the business. It was my role, I guess, to do sales and marketing, and then he would take care of the projects. Okay. And then we went from painting work and just window dressing was one that was popular for me at the time. Then we're introducing other trades and just grew and grew. And it got to a point where we were licensed builders, but I was renovating blocks of units. So someone would buy like a 6-pack or something like that. Yeah, and they'd call us in. We'd repaint it, new kitchens, bathrooms.
Full service
decks,
offering.
Full service, yeah. And then I started something where no one else was doing it at the time, which is the pre-sale makeover. So back 12 years ago, it was either you'd hire a painter or you'd hire a kitchen guy or you'd hire a stylist to get your house ready for sale. Yep. And I just saw a market, an opportunity there, so I grabbed it and the business evolved again. 12 odd years ago, maybe 10, started that. Now it's very good. And then dealt with property managers and it just goes on. And just got to a really good stage. And very recently, just before I finished with my business partner, we were raising houses, building in underneath, doing big projects. And then at one point I thought, I'll give the reno and building side a miss and just concentrate on property styling. Yeah, okay.
So, you're essentially going into full-on project management.
Absolutely.
I mean, Phoebe and I have had that experience not doing it ourselves. We had a project manager come in and kind of manage the thing for us with a property that we were, subdivision, redevelopment, all that sort of stuff. And I can just imagine the sort of, we saw how much goes into something like that. It's incredibly, there's so many different pieces moving all over the place. So we think it is fast-paced and there's a lot going on purely property styling. Add to it all of the other stuff, and I imagine you had a number of them going at the same time.
Yeah, I think on average we had about 5 or 6 houses.
Wow. At any one time.
Yeah, that could be one painting project, or it could be a kitchen, or it could be a whole house or a deck. But that was good times.
Yeah. So you mentioned since then your business partner and you kind of separated the business, so you've taken the styling side off and kind of run with that.
Yeah.
How do you actually, I assume that's not as easy as you kind of made it sound, taking a business and splitting it into its component parts, is that, what do you go through when you're doing something like that?
Hell.
Yeah.
It's one of the hardest things to stop kind of one business and then continue and grow another. It's very hard because we already had our stock of furniture that we would use, but we also had to buy more as you grow, as you know. Yep. Yeah, so it's almost like starting a new business from day one, zero, and just building from there. So it's very hard work.
And I guess the reason I ask that is because obviously in this industry there's a lot of sole traders. There's a lot of husband and wife couples like, Phoebe and I.
Yep.
But I'm sure there's people out there as well who are in some sort of business partnership, or at least might consider something like that. So imagine that, that has to be a consideration at some point, right? Like the things that you care about with the people you're in business with change. So anyway, was there ever a point that you considered not running with BMC, giving it away and starting something different, or was property styling kind of always...
I never had plan B.
Yep.
It was always, this was just my dream, and it was one of those things where for me, getting a phone call, say in the car or wherever, and having the real estate, and you'll appreciate this, having a real estate agent ring up and say, "Hey Dave, I've got this house," and they're the words I want to hear, because something's going to follow.
Yep.
And just hearing those things is for me was just everything. Yeah, because someone values you at whatever stage I was in, and wants you to help them. Yeah, that was sensational.
Brilliant. So tell us a bit about BMC today to give a bit of context. So some of the numbers, I guess. So when did the kind of change in the business happen? How many houses do you kind of style at any one time? Those sort of numbers, employees, warehouse, stock.
2-3 years ago, we kind of stopped doing the reno side of the business and then concentrated on being a property styling service provider.
Yep.
Warehouse size, I think it's close to the 800 square metres, if anyone knows what that is. But
I guess I compare it to what we've got, and it's quite a large space, which is significant in terms of obviously the stock that you own to fill it.
Yeah. And we don't have a forklift situation, so it's just pretty much ground level and whatever we can.
Yep, step ladders. And
Step ladders. But to grow, it's always cheaper to go up than it is out.
Sure.
But with that, you need forklift and forklift license and all those things. So at the moment, we'll just stick to what I've got. In terms of staff, when we're busy, about 11 all up. Yeah.
Okay.
Between, say, admin office and the boys and the stylists and assistants and myself. Yeah.
Sure. And you've got your own truck as well?
Yeah, we've got our own truck, which is about the same size as your one. But then we've also hired a larger one. I would like to buy a bigger one, but of course,
we've all got a big wish list.
Yeah, we got it.
All right. Now, the type of properties that you style, you're quite particular or specialised, I guess. You tend to focus on the $1 million plus, all the way up to multi-million-dollar properties. I mean, we kind of touched on one earlier, and I've seen pictures on your Instagram of all sorts of properties on the river and, beautiful, like I say, $4 or $5+ million places. You obviously got stock that meets that sort of market, and that's kind of what you're going for as a high-end, high-quality provider.
Yeah.
What made you take that focus when you... was it that way from the start? Did you kind of find that was working for particular agents and you doubled down on it?
Yeah, I had one agent in Indooroopilly that we were doing a lot of work with, and I just realised I've got this mentality, I guess, that you got to meet and exceed the expectation of the agent and buyers, What's the other saying? Buyers will always buy better than what they've got. So generally speaking, people who are buying another house will always buy better, unless you're downsizing, right? So I figured you've got to have, as a stylist, we've got to have stock that the general public don't have. So we've got to have better furniture, better quality, I started going down that path, and one thing led to another, and we just kind of fell into a little niche. That I believe there's an area in the market that hasn't been filled. So...
And obviously working out. You probably the same as us. We have our particular type of property, which is kind of more the mid-market range, but that doesn't mean we say no to other work outside of that necessarily. There's been occasions where we know that we're not the person that's going to do the best job on a particular property, but
you do your best.
You do what you can for particular agents. But obviously you're enjoying success at that level. Is there any regrets on the market that you're after, or is that...
No regrets. Yep. No regrets. It's whether you're doing entry-level or mums or dads or high-end, I think the key part to this is just servicing your your clients very well. Yeah.
Yep.
It just so happens that it's the high-end market that I've fallen into, but regardless if it was, any other one, you've still got to treat them and do the work as best you can.
Yep. Okay. This one, you might need a moment to think about it, but I thought it was interesting to ask the question, if you could and I guess to give some context why I'm asking a question like I'm about to is, as you mentioned, your business started as a painting business. You've gone through this whole range of changes over the years.
Yep.
If you could click your fingers and change one aspect of what your business looks like today, is there anything that comes to mind that you would like to change about, whether it's structure or target market or reputation, or is there anything like that comes to mind that you would like to change?
Okay, so for me now as a business owner, structure is a good one. Like everyone sees the pretty pictures on Instagram and Facebook and whatever you show them on print.
Yep.
But it's all the back end stuff that people don't see, So for me, structure would be an important thing I'd like to do better.
Okay. Yeah. Good answer. What would you say has been the most difficult thing you've had to deal with in your time with Brisbane Makeover Co?
The most difficult. I think the early part of my business was difficult because 12 odd years ago, styling wasn't as popular as it is now, let alone being a male doing styling work. It wasn't easy, Yep. And then introducing the service to real estate agents. Some of them didn't get it back then, and some of them still don't get it now. So just introducing the service,
Yep.
Not saying I was a leader or anything back then, but just offering the service.
Yep.
Yeah, it was hard work.
You're not the first to have that answer. It's hard enough to sell something and a service or a product or an idea if somebody already wants it because you've got competitors out there. It's even harder when you first have to even convince them that it's worth wanting, or an education piece.
Yeah. And we're lucky now because there's shows like The Block and House Rules, whatever, and just makes things look glamorous. And here's the finish, or now you can have this service. But years ago, it was hard. It was really hard.
You probably pre-answered this next question because I was going to say, what are some of the things you've noticed are changing in the home staging industry? Whether that's the last 6 months, 12 months, is there anything in particular that kind of comes to mind that you think is changing?
I think expectation from agents. What they're considering as normal or standard is a very interesting thing, where years and years ago it was much higher, but there's more people coming onto the market, providing the service.
People offering more and more, and
it could be more and more, or particular looks, So just the industry has changed since I started. Yeah.
And is there anything that you've got your mind on for the next 12 months, or anything that we can either answer it either from a industry point of view? Is there anything that you think will continue to change, or that you're at least thinking about, or maybe from your point of view, your business in particular, is there anything you want to experiment with or think about?
Oh, look, I've got this thing where I just want to, as a professional now in the industry, we need to show real estate agents that, hey, we are a professional service, So I want to make sure that when people see our work, that it looks good, but it does the job, So because it's easy to make something look pretty, but it's also got to be functional, and when people come into the house, they've got to feel a particular way. The furniture's got to make the room flow and all those things. So for me, it's, I guess, kind of like you guys, where we need to educate everyone that it's just not about fluffing pillows and putting a couch here with a piece of artwork. Like, there's a lot more to it, and they need to understand that we're offering a service. We've got stock and staff and talents that they need to pay for and appreciate. Yeah,
I think I agree, and I think it's kind of growing as the industry grows as well and becomes more normal. Like you say, there's a lot more agents now that. There's some out there that will only sell a house if it's styled, and there's a lot more who will prefer a stylist to come in. So with that, I guess, comes some maturity to the market, and it's something that will continue to grow. I don't really know what we can necessarily do about it, other than, as you say, within your own business, present yourself in a way that kind of shows it as a professional service. We're professional service providers, and what we do needs to come across that way.
Yeah, because if we don't, they'll kind of expect anything, and then it's going to be a price war to the bottom,
Yep.
So I think if we can show that, hey, what we do is beneficial to the agents and the vendor, they're going to appreciate us more, So it's kind of, if we don't go down and grab these guys and lift them up and educate them to our level, they're just going to keep on dragging us back down.
And I think part of that, because I agree completely. I think because it's an immature market and there's a lot of young businesses, including our business, Foxy. Part of the learning process for a lot of us is to not only believe in our value, but communicate it in a way. Exactly what you're saying, but in a different. I'm saying it slightly differently. It's up to us to communicate and show the value. I don't blame agents for asking for discounts or for pushing us on price. Everybody does that in every aspect of their life. It's up to us to either, if we accept it. We say yes to that, then I'm not sure that that's the agent's fault. I think it's the people in the industry who are accepting it. If I go and say yes to a discount, then I'm setting up an expectation for that agent. It's up to me. I think my role, or our role, is to understand where we provide the value, where we sit in the market, and kind of communicate that in the way that it's understood. I think that's kind of part of it.
And the other thing too, it's hard to say to an agent or a vendor, and I'm just using figures here, but if you invest $3,000, $5,000, your return on investment is going to be this. It's almost impossible to do that,
Even though, from our side of the table, we see multiple examples of this every week, every month, from somebody who's selling their home. It's just an empty promise from their point of view. Or it could be. It could be perceived that way because they don't know any better.
And we do it every day. We know the value that we're providing.
Right. We can show examples, and I think that's one of the best ways to do it, is to have the numbers and some examples of similar properties and actually be able to provide that information to somebody to give them that confidence. But at the end of the day, there are no guarantees, are there? You can say this is what happens 80% of the time, but what happens the other 20, and a seller who might be selling a property for the first time isn't going to know any difference. So again, I don't blame them either. It's on us to kind of give them that confidence.
And saying that, it's also up to the agent, because I guess like you guys, we've styled a property, it hasn't sold, another agent has come along, and within days or weeks, it's sold,
Yep.
So
I might be jumping ahead. I won't go into the details, but we've got an example which I'm waiting for confirmation. But it's one of Phoebe and my personal properties that we've been thinking about selling, and again, I won't go into too much because it still might not be signed on the dotted line. All that.
Fair enough.
But if in however many weeks' time, once it actually gets hopefully unconditional, I'll be able to share that. And it's such a great example where you have this direct comparable of two properties that are literally side by side, sold a month apart. One's unstyled and with one particular agent, one styled, which was ours, with a different agent, and the result is incredibly different.
Wow,
so I can't wait to share the details on that one. Just because we can talk about the impact of styling.
Yep.
But at the end of the day, you can't ever really know the exact numbers, because unless you tried to sell it without the styling first, like say, you don't know what it would have sold for otherwise. Sorry.
I was going to say, the funny thing is, once an agent sees the benefit just once, they're convinced.
Yeah, I found the same.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yep.
All right, David, I've got some rapid fire questions. As I say, they're rapid fire questions. They don't have to be rapid fire answers. Take as long as you need. First one is, how has a failure, or what seemed to be a failure in the past, set you up for a later success?
I think it's education. Education, yeah. So, you fail in whichever way, but you learn what to do, you learn how to do, you learn why to do. And you just grow from it, depending on your mentality. If you fail in whatever way, you either choose to accept that as a learning tool, or you just sit in a corner and cry.
Yep, it's all an opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
All right, what is one of the best or most worthwhile investments you've made, whether that's money, time, energy?
For me, it's self-education.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I remember when I was starting off painting and I wanted to get more work, I didn't know what to do or how to go about it. So I remember just listening to podcasts or interviews or whatever on sales techniques. And I would go to bed listening to sales techniques. I'd wake up doing that. Mm-hmm. I remember having, just even painting houses by myself, and I'd have that playing in the background, learning how to introduce yourself to somebody and try to sell. So, yeah, education.
Yep, I'm completely with you on that one. Going off topic, but in fact, we went to an all-day event yesterday with Grant Cardone, Gary Vee, Kerwin Ray, multiple of these sort of people that, are well worth listening to. So I'm with you on that one. What advice do you wish you had when you'd started your business? And I'll let you take this either when you first originally started as the painting or when you did the pivot and did the home staging focus.
I think just to realise that it's not easy. Starting a business is not easy. It's some goddamn hard work. You pay yourself next to nothing, and you're trying to be positive, and it's hard work.
Especially in the early days.
Especially in the early days.
That's right. Especially in an industry where if your business model is such that you need to invest in stock. Yeah. I mean, like I said, we didn't pay ourselves a wage for the first probably 18 months, and I had a full-time job on the side, or this was my side part of it, and Phoebe did it full-time. So same thing, there's a level of growing and that first couple of years is I don't want to even cut it off at a couple of years. The first couple was a hard slog. That's all I know because that's where we're at. We're kind of 2 and a bit years in, but it's not easy. It's still not easy.
And there's a difference too, because once your stock pays for itself, and at the end of the day, if you've got your own stock, you're in the rental business. Mm-hmm. It just so happens that you're styling property and making it look good.
Your own best customer, essentially.
Yeah. So you are renting your own stock, and then once that pays for itself as a business, then you start making money. But you've still got to fork out a lot of money to buy the stock to be able to put it in and rent it out.
And if you grow, you got to keep buying more stock, and then you got to start, cycling new stock in and old stock out, and it never ends.
Never ends.
No. Phoebe enjoys the you went down recently to the Reed gift fair, I think it's called.
Melbourne.
Yep. So Phoebe did the same, and she's already decided she's going for an even longer next year. So that's the sort of things you got to be.
And stuff like that's good too, because that's home and giftware, furniture exhibition, and that could be for retailers, could be for people like us, but it's just good to go down there and see what's new, who's available, for the stock.
Meet suppliers.
Yeah.
Yep.
Stuff like that's good.
I'm taking us on a tangent. That's not very fast. Is there anything that comes to mind when I ask about any bad advice or recommendations in our industry? Anything you see that you think is not quite on the money?
Yeah. I think you need to do what's best for the property, and sometimes people get carried away with packages. I can only have 5 cushions here and 2 of this and whatever of that. But I think you need to do what is best for the property. So if you need to add that little bit extra, you know what?
Do it.
Yeah, take it on the chin, do it, because real estate agent's going to love you for it. The vendor's going to love you for it. The finish looks better. And it's just a positive thing. But if you stick to your guns and only provide so much, when you should be doing that little bit more, and that's the difference. So
I agree. I actually think, if you take your example, maybe a room needs I'm not the stylist, so I don't know what I'm talking about, but as for an example, maybe a particular room needs an extra occasional chair, and maybe obviously there's a cost of that to you, whether it's you're hiring it from somebody or an opportunity cost because you can't use it somewhere else. Whatever that cost is. I compare that to what's the brand or reputational value of over-delivering on the agent, and I think the long-term branding always wins in that situation.
Yeah.
Last one. I only get an answer on this one probably 50% of the time, so we'll see how we go. What's an unusual habit or absurd thing that you love? I can give you one of mine if you like to start. While I give you some thinking
that's
time.
a good question.
So Phoebe and I love playing board games, and I guess for those that don't know modern board games, go and Google that. It's a lot more than Monopoly and Scrabble these days. There's some really great stuff out there. But one thing that I've learned, and we've got quite a few, is that I enjoy playing them. What I enjoy more is watching YouTube videos of other people playing them and reviews of board games. I will go down a rabbit hole on YouTube watching that stuff.
Wow.
So that's kind of my weird thing. I enjoy playing them, but I enjoy watching others play them even more.
Yep. I wouldn't call it a weird thing, but what I'm doing for a living is what I absolutely love. So I know they say, do what you love and you don't work a day. That's me.
That's you.
Yeah. So I'm happy to go to Melbourne and look at these exhibitions, or if it's real estate, like I'm just passionate about the whole industry. Yeah.
I think that whole, do what you love and you never work a day, and the whole, find something you're passionate about. I think there's a lot, it's cliche and it's maybe overused, but I think there's a lot of truth in that. If for no other reason than the person who's passionate is going to do more. They're going to outwork you. They're going to outlast you. I mean, if you're doing something for some, if it's money or it's, something that you don't love, you're not going to put in the same sort of, hours or effort or education, self-education, those sort of things that the person who loves it does.
So we had a little outlet store in my warehouse, and for me it was like, well, I've got some stock here that I'm happy to move on. So I opened up an outlet and we had, some new stock and some ex-display stuff. And I was working there. So I was doing the styling Monday to Friday. Plus I was working at the outlet on Saturday and Sunday. So I worked for about 4 months straight. That was crazy. But I enjoyed it at the time, And then once I figured out it was 4 months straight, I thought, oh, that's enough,
Cut it.
But I thought if I get access, we all do, to some pretty cool accessories and furniture and artwork, that why not share the love a bit,
Yep.
So I was happy to do that.
Very good.
But not now.
Well, that's the last of my rapid fire questions. The last question I have for you is for those that aren't already following BMC, what is the best way for people to follow, have a look at what you're doing, or even reach out and ask a question? How should they do that?
I guess the standard Instagram and Facebook, Brisbane Makeover.
Okay.
You'll punch that in, you'll find us. I'm not the person behind it, but
it'll get there.
You'll get
Somebody
there.
will let you know.
Yeah, that's it.
Very good. Well, David, thanks for coming and having a chat.
Awesome.
It's been great. And it's the first one that I've done face to face, which is kind of nice. They're usually kind of over Skype, so it's I don't know, there's something a bit more to it when you can look at the person. So appreciate it, and we'll talk again soon.
Awesome. All right. Thank you.